Hey everybody, it's Peter and I'm filming here at Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals, and this is my first look at the Polestar 2. So this is a Polestar 2 long-range all-wheel drive, and those of you who don't know me, or those of you who know me for reviewing motorcycles on this channel, I actually had an entire career reviewing vehicles before this, and specifically electric vehicles, and this is one I've been waiting to see for a long time. So there's a lot of videos out there on this car, but in this video, I am going to go through this car in detail and really just show you some of the things that the other videos aren't showing you. So even though I won't have some of the more common things, I'm not going to do a driving video of this, there's plenty of videos out there that do that. I will start pointing out some of the things that I think are unique, some of the things that I think make it stand out, and some of the things that make this a really good electric vehicle, because in my first look, I'm actually impressed with it. It's not perfect, but it does some things really well. So let's get going with the review. So one of the things I want to be clear about the benefit of filming here at Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals is Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals gives me complete access to their entire vehicle lineup, and they have all kinds of electric vehicles in stock. There's the standards like the Hyundai Kona, there's the Toyota Prius Prime, there's all kinds of vehicles in that class, Nissan Leaf, but there's also a number of Teslas here, and this is kind of where I'm viewing this vehicle. I'm kind of comparing it to a Tesla, and maybe we'll have to do a future video like that comparing it to Tesla. You can let me know if that's what you want to see. But if you want to know more, make sure you hit subscribe and follow along. Ask me questions in the comment. As long as this vehicle's here, I'll be able to continue answering questions with it, and maybe we'll have to get that Tesla comparison going. First thing I'm going to notice compared to a Tesla is this front end is a whole different look. Now I had it running here a little bit. You've got the LED lights. They come on, actually let's just turn it on for a second. They come on in a pretty cool way here. So we'll just hop in and throw it in drive here. As we throw it in drive, that's what kind of brings it all to life. So you can see there's kind of some action there. I don't know if you can see it, but the lights kind of move up and down and stuff. So you'll have a better view of what's going on right now. We're just going to leave that for now. It does some cool things and feels interesting, but the overall feel is definitely of a different look than something like a Tesla. Something like a Tesla has that really unique Tesla look, and if you don't like that look, this is different. This is going to look different. The other thing I noticed is visually it has a little bit more ground clearance. It has some presence to it. And this is a very large hood. My disappointment is in the frunk. And let's be honest, really Tesla's the only one that does the frunk well. Obviously Ford with their F-150 and also with their Mach-E is pretty good, but you know, the Kia, the Hyundai, they talk about their frunk. It's really a glove compartment. This one's bigger than that, and we're going to show you that. But one of the things I really like about this Polestar here is it's kind of overbuilt. This is how Volvo does their thing. Volvo's always been overbuilding their cars. That's kind of how they developed their safety reputation. When everybody else was making kind of tin cans, they were overbuilding their car. And I'll show you some things in here where it's kind of overbuilt, and I don't think that's a knock. I think Tesla's weakness is sometimes the feeling that they kind of underbuild some things. They've got that sheet thin metal, the panel gaps aren't great. You don't have that here. You have some really good quality stuff. Now the interesting thing with this to me is there's a top end spec of this car that has Brembo brakes, Öhlins suspension, and I just bought a motorcycle with Brembo brakes and Öhlins suspension, and I can tell you that those are nice upgrades. This isn't that, and that's why this one's probably on less videos, but this one still feels like a very nice luxury performance car. It does not feel like a techie type thing in the same way a Tesla does, but it has good technology, but it's going to be more familiar to people. So let's get this front out of the way, and then we'll take a look at some of the back side. We'll go rear seat, front seat, and then we're going to look at the tech inside, and that's really where I'm going to start showing you things that probably the other videos aren't showing you. So let's take a look inside this front to start. All right, so I've walked around to the driver's area, and you're going to pop the hood exactly the same as you would on a Volvo. Now we should talk about Volvo and Polestar. We'll do that in a second here, but let me just show you what I'm talking about here. Let's see if we can see. I've got my watch as a viewfinder, so can we see what I want to show you? Yes, okay. If I hold it right around here, there is a hood latch right there. There's also another one right over here. Yes, you can see them both. The dual hood latch, kind of, you know, that overbuilding type thing. Now, underneath the hood, yeah, it's just not big. I mean, it's not bad. It's bigger than some. It's well sealed up here. It's got this big kind of bar in the middle, which really just takes away your space. There's nothing underneath here that would require that to be that high. So you've got some space here. You could take this out, create some extra space. There's some, the jack here, some inflator kit type stuff down there. I'd like to see this bigger in a vehicle with this much of a front end, but again, I'm sure they've done their safety things. The only issue is that Tesla's also done their safety things, and theirs is far deeper. So, you know, It's okay, but it's just something worth mentioning that it's probably just not something you're going to use as a regular everyday thing. This is just going to be, you know, a little bit of extra stuff, maybe that you keep here permanently. So there's your front. Let's talk about Polestar versus Volvo, and then we'll go look at the trunk, rear seat, front seat, and we'll keep going. So just while these lights are on, let's quickly say they are flickering a little bit in your camera. They don't flicker at all in person. That's just what these LED lights are. And to be fair, they're very precise. There's a precision here that makes it feel very luxury. It's nice. So let's talk Volvo and Polestar. First of all, Volvo, Swedish manufacturer, known for safety. We're going to talk about one thing in particular they're really known for in a second. But they started this and they were a little small company. They have recently, or not so recently, I guess, been bought out by a Chinese company that has all kinds of money. So while you may see Volvo as maybe a fringe player right now, China is doing very well with electric vehicles. They are a major electric vehicle player, and big money backed by Volvo means you have Volvo-ish engineers handling their electric cars. They've rebranded their electric cars as Polestar. This may not be a minor player for a long time. That's one of the things that's going on in the auto market, is that the favorite brands are really switching around. You see companies like Kia and Hyundai doing very well with their electric vehicles, really raising their brand perspective. Something like Volvo could very much follow that same pattern of being a minor brand to being a much more major brand if they continue to do things right. And I would argue that they've done this quite right so far. So it is a spin-off brand, but it's not something you should be looking at as a minor brand. It's got potential to really do some things that are innovative and interesting in this industry, as there's a changeover from the gasoline vehicles that Volvo has made to the electric vehicles that Polestar is already making. So let's talk real quick the back end here. One thing that bothers me is I can't find a trunk handle here. So there's a button inside, there's a button on the key fob. We'll show you the key fob in a second. It is, it's very Volvo. We're going to pop this open for a second by holding that button. One thing I do like, it looks like a sedan. It is a hatchback. You have a lot of space here. Now, that feels like that was going higher before, maybe not. So there we go. You've got your little typical panel here that you have in all hatchbacks, a really deep trunk. We're going to bring you closer to show you a couple things, but where they fail in the front, they do well in the back. There's a deep floor well here, which we'll show you as well in just a second. Some nice features here. But this is a very practical car, and again, kind of that very Volvo feel. Very square, open. We'll talk about some of the features as we move the camera closer. All right, so we're looking underneath that kind of cover that we have that we just showed you right there. Of course, that cover can be taken out. You can get some more clearance up by the window, typical hatchback type styling here. Now there is a little bungee pocket off to the side here, which is just typical Volvo design as well. You can sort of push it out of the way or keep it in place on the side there. This side doesn't have the same indent that the other side has with that bungee cord, but it still has an elastic strap here, which is kind of nice. You've got tie downs built into the wall there that are really quality feeling, a tie down in the back corner down here. So if you're driving athletically, you can tie things down. You've got the tether systems there. Safety is just not going to be an issue, and then almost something not worth talking about because Volvo does safety well. They've got the sort of, you know, really good safety stuff. Now, this is interesting. This is where that floor comes up, and they have kind of like this little hood propped kind of thing made out of plastic that comes right there. Now, to me, this looks a little high. I probably will clear to shut that door. I'm not sure if you want to have that, but there is a little plastic prop there and a little bit deeper in here. Let's see if we can get a little better view at that. Oh, freehanding the camera is never good for people, but let's just try that right here. So you do have a nice deep well in there. We've got some extra stuff in there, but they do this very well. So electric vehicles, no fuel tank, no exhaust components back here. Front and rear, you should be able to build a deep trunk if you're designing it from the ground up. That's just something that I think most people are going to expect. Volvo does it okay in the front, you know, average for the class, but not as well as something like Tesla. Well, they do very well back here. Tesla's still a little deeper back there, but very good. The pass-through in the armrest is also the nice thing. It's a 60-40 split, but you can drop the center if you're just dropping hockey sticks or something small through the middle, and then, of course, keep the two most comfortable seats for your guests. So that's the rear end. Let's check the rear seat, and then we're going to go to the front seat, and then we'll really show you some of those unique things. So looking at this rear door area, to me that's very Volvo-like. It also is kind of SUV-like. Sure, the back end slopes down like a hatchback, but you do have this SUV type feel. Now let's just swing around here, typical Volvo stuff here. When I say overbuilt, these doors look very thick to me. That's part of their safety structure. That's just kind of what they've always done. They also open fairly wide. Jumping in here, I do have the seat in the front set to where I need it. The problem with a lot of electric vehicles is there's a battery under the floor, so even though it's a taller vehicle, that floor inside can be raised, and this one's not exempt from some of those compromises. Really, every vehicle, every electric vehicle has the same issue. I would like my legs to be fully flush on the seat when I'm sitting like this. They're not. So I can still get comfortable and sit them flush on the seat like this. There's limited toe space underneath the front seat. Now, I'm fine here with my size 11s, but if you had work boots on, it would be pretty tight. You're gonna have some limited toe issues. Now, you can raise this seat, which will give a little bit of space, but that will, of course, take away headroom. To be fair, headroom is excellent in this car, front and rear. Over here, you know, I've got plenty of space in front of me. So it's comfortable back here, but there is a slight difference in comfort from some Volvos to this, and it's due to the way everybody's building electric cars right now with that sandwich floor. You want to keep the roof low for aerodynamics, you want to keep the floor up to fill that big battery in there, and there's just a little bit of a difference in a feel. Now, most people are going to get in this car, most people who aren't car nerds like me are going to get in this car and go, wow, it's nice back here, it's roomy back here, it's perfectly fine, and they'd be right. One issue I have with this trim model potentially, there's no pockets right here. They do have this plastic back seat, which is easy to clean, easy to wipe, but I would like to see pockets. You do have vents back here, and you do have ports back here, USB port. Cup holders are right here beside me, but yeah, I'd like to see the pockets. Same thing with the doors. There's a nice cup holder in the door there. Overall, we'll talk about the inside of this when we just jump in the front seat, which we're gonna do right now. All right, before we jump in the front seat, I do want to show you a little bit of mirror and door talk, but first thing I'm going to show you is that very Volvo-esque key fob. This is the back side. It looks like it was just made for a cheap toy and, you know, very squared off. There is on this side a Polestar logo, which tells you what it is, but it's funny from the back that there's just no design. So, you know, very utilitarian, nothing really in style there, but maybe that's the minimalist style they're going for. Trunk button, lock and unlock are the only real buttons there, and we've got a hazard light over here. So kind of an interesting key fob. I don't like it from here compared to most luxury cars. Usually you set your keys on the table with a luxury car and you have a sense that that's what it is. I feel like they could design this a little nicer. That being said, practically speaking, works fine, and I have no sense of style, so who am I to judge? One thing I missed when I was actually filming the car, we're back here in my office, is this key fob here is the one I just showed you, but this is the buttonless key fob, which again, gives you something smaller to put in your pocket, which I'm actually a big fan of. I think that's a really good idea to have a buttonless fob. So again, you can touch those door handles, get it to unlock, do all those things if you didn't need the buttons. And again, opening the trunk, this one has the button there, but you do have the button in the car. So that buttonless fob, yeah, gotta give them credit. That's a good idea. Yeah, speaking of sense of style, there's an interesting piece over here that I want to show you. There is something here that is a Volvo or Polestar patent, and you can see that the glass on the, oops, I just locked the door. Oh, well, we'll fix that in a second. The glass on the edge of this mirror is right up against it. That is a patent that they have done. Now, I'm having trouble filming it exactly. Oh, I just unlocked the door by right putting my arm against there again. You can sort of see my face in the window. Anyways, the glass comes right out to the edge. What's interesting about that is usually there's a housing and the glass moves within the housing. The only reason I could see that you would want to patent this is two reasons, actually. One, you like the design, but two, mirrors are really difficult on electric cars especially because they are real sources of wind resistance, and wind resistance is the absolute enemy of range in these cars. So I can see how having the mirror come right out to the edges, in theory, would allow you to have a smaller housing with a bigger mirror, and that would be beneficial for that wind resistance. If you've ever looked at a Tesla in pre-production, Tesla Cybertruck is a great example. They never had mirrors, and that's because they're trying to, you know, minimize this. Certain electric vehicle makers are pushing for cameras to be replacing mirrors, and governments aren't agreeing yet, and I kind of understand that. But what's interesting is if you've designed this as a patent for your company because it's more aerodynamic, you did not go with the aerodynamic door handles. Almost every electric vehicle manufacturer is going with the electric or the flush door handles here, and we don't have that with this car. Now, that's interesting. One thing I'm gonna try to show you here when I lock and unlock this car, touching the door there, your lights come on there. Let me lock it. Oh, let me just try it again. Oh boy, there we go. Oh, I can't do it. The headlights, when I locked it the last time, they have this pattern of coming in and out, and you can see that really projected well on the front area here. So let's jump in and we'll talk about one other thing that's kind of interesting. Speaking of patents, here is what Volvo was known for. This here on the seatbelt, where is the seatbelt? Down here, is something that is interesting, something that is unique. You have an electric vehicle, Polestar, which is a very new brand, and on there it says since 1959. Well, those of you who don't know what that's all about, Volvo invented the seatbelt, the three-point seatbelt, in 1959. They did not patent this feature, which is exactly why you have it in your vehicle that you drive today. They allowed it for everybody because they realized how safe it was. So you've got the little throwback to Volvo, even though Volvo's telling you, no, this isn't a Volvo, it's a Polestar. They very much throw in something that is what Volvo is known for, and they try to go into a heritage type feeling there. Jumping in here, you do feel very Volvo, but there are some tweaks. One thing on this model that's interesting, you have a powered seat with powered lumbar. It's a 4-way lumbar, that's what you want, but there's a piece missing here, and that's not this lever that handles that. There is a little knob back there that is a little hard to reach that is what adjusts the back angle. So interesting way to save some costs, I guess. 4-way lumbar, good. Backrest that's a little bit difficult to adjust, not so good. Jumping in here, you'll see very good quality stuff. This is a cloth car, and it's a Volvo cloth, not a leather. I actually am a big fan of it. It's very durable, very nice. But you know, if you expect leather in a car like this, you're not getting it in this trim line. Coming down here, you do have some nice details here. This is really the anti-Tesla, right? You've got some nice detailing in here. You've got a lot of visual interest, even along the top of the dash. Your vents are up there. You've got this screen here, which is, again, you know, very typical for an electric car. Some interesting patterns everywhere. This, again, feels like nice and soft up here, like soft as in like firm, but, you know, a little bit squishy, rubbery-ish, but nice textured finish. This is visually interesting. It's a cloth. This is visually interesting. It's a plastic. This, again, matches the top, and then down here is a different material again. Everything in this car is visually interesting while still relatively minimalist. This feels to me like a more luxurious car than jumping in a Tesla. Now, I understand Tesla has their following and people will feel that's luxurious, but this is more traditional luxury in my opinion. So the other thing that you have here that I think a lot of people are going to appreciate is the dash here. So I've got it on wide angle camera right now. What I'm going to do is press the brake. There's no start button in this car. I'm going to put my window up there, and I'm going to show you some of the features in the dash here. So first of all, because there is no start button, once again, you press your foot on the brake. It even says that right here. Let's just zoom in all the way. Brake and shift, reverse or drive to start. So we're going to do that. We'll go play with our wide angles here. This is the shifter here. Kind of a cool looking thing. Very simple. You understand how it works. You push forward for reverse, push it back for drive. We're going to throw it into reverse for a second because I want to show you a few things that I kind of like. First of all, it's telling me that I don't have that thing from 1959 done up, so let's just make it happy and do that for it for a second. You can drive without, but it just still gives you the warning there. So, seatbelt's done up. Again, some cars are going to have a 360 camera. This one does not, but it is a large backup camera. Now, what I like is now that we're in reverse, check out some of the stuff here. Again, this is not a top spec model, but it's beeping, and then it has a little area there. So you have the sensors here saying, hey, I sense a door nearby, and you can see them not only on the sensor system, but also on the ground here. And as we get a little closer to the door, it'll read it more accurately, and you can see it's coming in. We're on a slight angle, but it's coming in there. So you can really see, hey, I'm seeing that's where the danger is. So if there's a bump on the ground, it shows you both in the camera and in the system here what it does. So again, Tesla handles it one way, these guys handle it a different way, but it's both very good. So we're going to go back to drive for a second here, and we're going to go forward, and we're going to put it in park. So let's throw it in park like this, press the park button right there. There's a few things that are interesting here as well. So in this dash, again, you don't have a traditional dash in something like Tesla. You have maximum speed limit. Now usually that is done on public roads, where it sees speed limits. There's various ways that cars do that. What's interesting is I am here in a private area, so it's saying, hey, you're in a parking lot, let's stick with 15. Let's call that the speed limit, so that's pretty good. The dash is not showing the clarity on the camera here, and it's showing way more glare. So the grayness that you're seeing here, it is black in person. There's great contrast, excellent screen in there. A lot of things that I just kind of really like in there. So we can show you some of that, but I want to show you some of what's over here, which is interesting to me. Like every new car, this is going to be a little bit intimidating for some people, but you'll find it's very easy to learn. Even though it's basically all screen-based, it's very simple. So you've got things up here like you can turn on the backup camera anytime you want. A couple things I don't like, both here and in the dash in some of the settings. This is a software thing. This car does not have a sunroof, so to me, you should just tweak the software to match the car. If it doesn't have a sunroof, it shouldn't have a sunroof. You know, those are little things like that. But come into here, you've got the driver's setting. So steering feel, you can change it from light to standard to firm. If you had that one with the Brembo brakes, which would be like this, and the Olin suspension, which is, again, just like the motorcycle I just bought. Pretty cool stuff. Brembo brakes and Olin suspension. This one doesn't have that, but if you had those, you'd be able to adjust your suspension as well in various settings. So here you have your steering feel. You can change that. You can go to a sport mode, which turns your traction control off. One pedal drive is very easy to understand as well. If you're familiar with EVs, you know what one pedal drive is. That's really another video. We'll save it. But you can turn it off. You can coast. You can turn it on low or standard. Same thing with the creep. Creep is essentially let off the brake and let the car drift forward. You can turn that on or off so it feels like an electric vehicle or it feels like a gas vehicle when it sort of creeps forward. You can just set that all up. So all of this is easy to understand, and there's no swiping. Whatever menu you're in, you've got the entire screen, which is good. And the buttons are large, they're clear and easy to read. So again, compared to a lot of modern cars, this is pretty good with the font, everything in here. And then you've got a lot of the stuff that's sort of standard car. So lane keeping aid, it'll help you steer the car, driver alert. This is all standard in most cars. Roadside information. So again, when I said it reads the roadsides on the road, you can turn that on or off and it'll display them in your dash. Collision avoidance type systems, you have it set to standard. You can change that to late or early. These are just warnings and reactions and other stuff. Ready to drive notifications is a standard thing in a lot of cars now. It can sense when the vehicle in front of you has pulled away from you, and it's like, hey, wake up, you should get moving. So stuff like that just kind of in there. Charge information is good here as well. It's currently set to 81%. This car you can set to 90 or 100. So what they're saying here is they recommend charging it to 90% to help with your longevity, to help with range degradation is really what they're talking about there. But when you're going on a long trip, you can certainly bring it back up to that 100 and charge it beyond. So good charging information here. You can schedule charge. This is normal stuff for an EV, but very clear to read. And again, there shouldn't be a sunroof on this car. This is software that should match a car. And then the car status and other stuff. You can see all's good, no warnings here, tire pressures here, various information there. Locking and unlocking, you can change some of the behavior. So just unlock just a single door, all the doors, that kind of thing. Visual unlock, and you can tell it to do different things. So all of these menus are really easy. Interior lights, you can change them off, you can change them to high, you can change them, all kinds of things, mood intensity, mood lights, that kind of thing. So everything here is really nice. The mirrors are something that's interesting too. We're going to adjust those mirrors in a second here, but in addition to the adjustment, you can turn them to folding when they're locked. Again, the camera's having a little bit of trouble adapting to the screen. It is crystal clear in person. But you can fold them when they're locked. You can tilt them on reverse. So you can, when you put the car in reverse, some mirrors kind of tilt down to look at the lane lines, and you could do that with the driver's side, the passenger side, or both. You can switch which side or that kind of thing. So that's a really nice thing. And then the auto dimming mirrors. These are your outside mirrors as well. You can stand it to a really dark tint, which is a little harder to see in certain light, really light tint, or standard. So then again, that's a nighttime mirror. So fancy mirrors, but let's take a look at those. Because the glass reaches the edge, when I adjust it, which is right down here, I'm going to turn on the left side right there. You can see the left is ready to go, and we're going to use the joystick there. It is the entire mirror housing that is moving, not just the lens. So that's part of those patented mirrors that give you a lot of visibility, but not any frame at all. So you can see they're really easy to adjust, really well done. But that is something that is unique on this car. And again, like I said, they patent that, so they're proud of it. They don't want people copying it, I guess. So really good information here, but really what I want to show you is this information here. This is what I think is interesting. This is why things are going to be familiar. Obviously, Apple CarPlay is here. Again, if I wish I could get this to focus on, it's so much more clear in person, but the camera's having trouble. But this very much looks like an Apple cell phone, an Apple CarPlay app, or a Android cell phone. You've got Google Maps in here, which of course we can tap into there, and you've got a nice full screen. What I like about Google Maps is, of course, you can tie your account to this, your name and other stuff on there. And when you do that, you end up with the ability to, look something up on your phone, and it's already in your car through the Google Assistant. Same thing if you're using Google Calendar and those kind of things. So Apple CarPlay, I believe Android Auto. I don't see it here, but I'm pretty sure it's got everything else Android down here as well. There's the Play Store down there as well. Google Play Books, all kinds of stuff. What I like is the Google Assistant. So I can sit there and say, hey, Google. And it comes up, and hey, Google, what time is it right now?
It's 10:19 a.m.
So there you go. We got to adjust the clock over here, 10:18. So you do have the Google Assistant there, which is really kind of nice. It's built into the car. It does some nice things. So that voice control, what I like about it is it's not relying on Volvo to update their system. Google's voice control is one of the best in the world. Them and Siri are basically the best in the world. So you've got that system which just adapts and adjusts as is, which is really nice. So Really well done screen here, really well done options. Again, the ability to add features not just through the car, but also through the Android type system here, what appears to be an Android system. I can't promise you it is, but it certainly has that Android feel to it, and I would say it's certainly Android based on how you look at it. Now, down here, in this raised area here, there's some pros and some cons. You have a little thing, I believe that's a phone charger, although maybe not on this level of car. It's certainly a phone spot down there. What you lose in space there, you do gain in space over here. There's some nice spaces here to put some space in there, put some things in there. You've also got the nice gear shift. You have a single cup holder here, which can be covered by the armrest a little bit when it slides forward, or you can lift this up, and there is an extra cup holder back there. So you lose your armrest to get that second cup holder, but you know, it is what it is. Let's take a look wide angle at these seats here. Again, it is a textured cloth. I really like this. I'm not a huge leather fan. This is gonna be much warmer in the winter, but also very grippy when you're driving athletically. They're comfortable seats, they're large seats, and again, if you need leather, you have to move up a trim line, but this car doesn't have that. One more thing with this screen here, there's two real swipe options at all. There's a line here and there's a line there. So you can pull down from the top, get some of your notifications, which can be cleared, which they are clear, and you can pull up from the bottom here to activate some other things, and then, whoops, well, didn't want to do that. So there we go. Up from the bottom brings you home. Now, if you tap anywhere in your climate setting here, you can change, for instance, the climate to there. We're going to close that down. You have your heated seats that are on here, so we can turn them on. Level 3, level 2, level 1. The eco button is really what brings up your auto climate. Now, what's interesting about auto is you can start adjusting zones very easily here for where you want heat and other types of things. So everything in the climate is in this screen, which means you are taking your screen away from something like your radio to adjust your climate. If you're backing up, you can't do your climate at the same time, which you probably shouldn't be anyways. You know, there's pros and cons to that. The only real climate buttons down here are the defrost and front and rear sort of defrost. You've got your radio volume and play, pause, and then you've got your light there. So very minimal buttons, just like on a Tesla, but these are buttons. They look like they're just touch sensitive, but they actually have a click to them, and you can turn things on or off there. So, but yeah, very simple. In most electric vehicles, you're gonna wanna stay with your auto setting here. There's also parking systems here, and then there's settings over here as well. So this car did have a setting where wherever I was in it, it told me I could turn the car off by pressing on the screen. You don't have to do that if it doesn't come up. You just get out like a Tesla and it will take care of itself a little bit. Got some steering wheel controls here, you know, the basics. You can bring up your Google Assistant there as well. You've got some cruise control settings over here. Overall, very nice feel. Very, very Volvo-like, and I like it. So let's just flip the camera around for 1 second here. So electric vehicle makers, especially the traditional vehicle makers, they can really go wrong in copying Tesla. I think Tesla leads for a reason. I think they do a lot of things well. One of the things is their charge network. You know, you have that network out there, which is rumored to be open up to vehicles like this soon. So, but you can go wrong in copying them and going too minimalist. I think this one hits the right balance with their screen technology. Again, this is a car that doesn't feel like there's no buttons. When you hop in a Tesla, it feels like there's you know, no buttons at all, and the screen is what it is. The way this screen works, I quite like. It's very intuitive. People who are used to having buttons have the same feeling like they have buttons. It's very easy to understand. There will be a slight learning curve with any new modern car. It's 2023 right now. When you buy a brand new car, you'll have a learning curve. But overall, this is done well. They don't copy Tesla too much, but when you think about it, there are very minimal buttons. There's no push button start, that kind of thing. So there's certainly some influence there from Tesla. I think a lot of people are going to like this car. It has a very familiar Volvo feel. You sit low in the car. You can see the sills are quite high here, but visibility is excellent. Certainly looking forward anyways. In the back, you know, maybe not as bad as you think, but of course, modern cars are a little tighter to see out back. You do have camera systems to help you with that. So overall, I quite like this car. I think it drives well. I think it's in the interior is done well, and I think it is an easier step for people who are in a mainstream gasoline car, especially something like a Volvo, to move into this car and not be confused. You've got a clear dash that reads out a lot of the same way most modern vehicles would, and again, that screen works very well. So I think Polestar and Volvo have done a good job with this. Let's do a little wrap up here and talk about who I think this car is for. So who is this car for? Well, obviously in this trim, this is not the performance trim, although every EV at this price point is going to have a certain level of performance. In some ways, this is the anti-Tesla. It looks different on the outside, it looks different on the inside, and this is an electric vehicle that if you are used to a mainstream gasoline car, you will probably find that you can get into this and operate it and have that feeling like this is a mainstream everyday car. This one doesn't have leather, this one doesn't have a bunch of luxury features, but it still does feel like a luxury car. Volvo and Polestar have done a good job of building a car that is slightly above the mainstream brands. I've worked a lot with Kia and Hyundai. The Ioniq 5 and the EV6 are cars you should consider with this. The EV6 feels lower and feels sportier and has a lot of interesting features, but the technology in this one has some things that I like. The ability to have those auto updates from that Android type system, the Google system built in, I think that's a strong point on this car. The Ioniq 5 is going to be more square. It's a little bit more controversial styling, but I think very much competes with this car as more of a direct competitor. From the Tesla side of things, again, you get a bigger frunk in there, but you do have those Tesla quirks that not everybody is going to be a fan of. What I'm a big fan of is that we're now starting to see some real differentiation in the EV segment. This is a unique car. They're not all the same anymore. And you're starting to sort of see everybody kind of reach out on their own and do great things, and I think that's good for everybody as we move to probably an electric vehicle future. So if you're interested in any of the similarly priced electric vehicles, the Polestar should be on your list. I think it's going to appeal to more people than you would think. And remember, this is a company to watch. This is maybe a minor player in the gasoline market, but they have potential to be a major player in the electric vehicle market from the future, and I'll be watching them. So if you have any questions about this car or other electric vehicles, make sure you hit the subscribe. Let me know in the comments below, and we'll try to come back to this. And I'm starting to think that maybe this and a Tesla need a side-by-side comparison. So if we have the opportunity to do that, we'll probably do that as well. Thanks everybody for watching. And again, if you want to see this car in person, it's sitting here right now at Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Come on down. This is a destination store. You'll be impressed with the inventory of not just this car, but all the other electric vehicles you can compare it against side by side by side. It's like an auto show right here in Fredericton, New Brunswick for electric vehicles. Thanks everybody for watching.